Hello, friends, and welcome to Worldbuild with Us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with my co-hosts Daniel Quinn and Courtney Staples. On today's episode, we finish up our two-part series from one Gluax. And before we get into this episode, I want to remind everyone that this is the second part of a two-parter. So if this is your first experience with Worldbuild with Us, go listen to that first episode first. Otherwise, you can be a little bit lost. And also, if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can click the link, follow some instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we can be building your world. Now, the last we left off, we had a very pretentious magical art school, and our twist was now add in something cute. And Courtney, I am ever so excited to hear how you managed to reconcile this twist. So what kind of cuteness did you add to our pretentious art school?
My idea was that this is like Redwall, where everyone is actually a cute woodland creature, or maybe they're all birds, a la Hatoful Boyfriend.
Oh my. Okay. So we've got anthropomorphic animals going on in here somewhere.
Wow, furry already.
Well, I was picturing more like,
Ah,
I guess, less human and more animal, I suppose, was my thinking.
that's what furry's like.
Well,
Yeah, that's. I'm just hearing you repeat yourself, Courtney.
man.
It's just like, God damn it.
Yeah.
So-
I didn't want it to just be the faculty, because I know we did that on a previous magic school prompt at some point ways back.
Yeah.
So I figured maybe just make the whole student body / teachers / everybody cute animals.
I can get behind some cute animals. Yeah, 100%. But okay, man, but now I'm thinking like, okay, but pretentious art, animal art, is that what we're looking at now? Like, man, that changes a lot of things. But I'm down for it, 100%. Sure.
Is it purely like a setting aestheticism, or in the sense that like the characters don't realize they are animals, and so we treat everything as if it were, you know, the human world, it's just that everyone's an animal. So like BoJack Horseman, for example. Or is it that we're in a forest setting now, and so everything we do should take into account that this is part of nature rather than a human sphere?
Yeah, I think we're looking on the spectrum of BoJack Horseman to Watership Down, right? Like, is it like, oh no, that's a real ass rabbit fighting another rabbit like tooth and claw, or is it like, hey, I'm a dude who just so happens to be a horse as well? Yeah, that's a great place to start, Daniel.
Yeah, I was definitely leaning towards the actual animals in some sort of more natural setting, but like when you take Redwall as an example, there are human structures and things that they inhabit and use. But so yeah, something along those lines.
Okay, so somewhere in the middle, but with a little bit of a nudge towards like full animal. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, like
Okay.
I don't want full on Watership Down, as in like they're just animals with like no, I don't know, no like clothing, because we talked about, you know, the winter ball last time is such an important part and things like that. So like they still have those human qualities of, you know, making clothes, obviously making art, but they are just animals.
It's almost like it's almost like there's a fourth wall element to it, in the sense that as viewers or readers, whatever the situation is, we recognize these natural elements, but we can to a certain extent ignore them to think of these beings as like sentient beings, despite that they're embodied as animals. But it seems to be there's nods to the natural world. So it's like in the gym room probably isn't just a gym room. It probably looks, you know, like some natural setting, but we can not so much ignore it, but it doesn't impinge on whatever story that you want to tell there.
Yeah,
Right, like you don't have to worry about them not actually having opposable thumbs, right? Like that's just
Right, exactly.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
we can ignore that. Like they can hold paintbrushes, they can, you know, sew clothing and so on. They have the capabilities to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
right, right. Because I'm also thinking of like, how would a snake like be a seamstress, right? Like stuff like that.
Mhm.
Well, frankly, they wouldn't because they're a snake. But yeah, no, we can hand wave that part. Okay, I gotcha. So we've got cute animals. So Daniel, how did you manage to reconcile with our cute twist? What did you bring for us?
Now the people may not think about this as cute, but I
Oh
had
Lord.
well, I had the notion that there's that librarians serve some kind of purpose that gives reprieve to these characters, because a lot of the students, they're stressed out phonies that are trying to create art and
Mhm.
make an identity for themselves, and they probably have great pressure to be the next genius of some kind, while they're being pursued by a nightmarish otherworldly dream monster, right? So I thought perhaps the librarians, they're not just helpful guides to finding information, which, let's be honest, these artists probably don't read. But when they do go to the library to look at art books, the librarians also serve as sort of guidance counselors in some respect.
Mhm.
And I don't know, this is probably drawing from my personal experience a little bit, because I remember my librarians as being a place I could go to escape from the rest of school, or from the unpleasant social cliques that are out there. Because
Mhm.
when you're in the library, everyone has to be silent. You can't cause a ruckus. Nobody can bully you, and the library people are paid to help you. So, but I personally had relationships with librarians that was very positive, and they would know who I am, and I could I almost got special privileges because I was friends with them. So I think in this setting, the librarians serve a special purpose that is neutral to all the bad things happening. Maybe they also have some sort of consequential, maybe as a consequence of how they operate, they can protect in some way from the dream monster. I don't know.
Mm.
I like
Interesting.
how
Yeah.
we're interpreting cute in different ways here. I,
Mhm.
I really do appreciate that. Because you're right, Daniel, that is cute. It's just not like romantic cute or
Yeah,
aesthetically cute. It's like, oh, it's just kind of nice. It's like
like
you
nice old lady cute.
yeah, it feels cozy to me or
Yeah.
comfy. It's like, oh, I'm putting on like a nice big sweater. I just feel warm and it's
Yes.
cold out. It's like that's how it feels to me. That kind of cute that we're looking for here. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can support that. I love an extended cast of supportive librarians.
Yeah, and I do like the idea that in some way there's some protection, or they're involved in protection against this dark lord figure. And it does make sense with what we were talking about daydreaming last time. Like if the dark lord person is trying to get people to daydream more, presumably out of boredom. If you go to the library, like you're doing a focused task, generally you're not sitting in class bored. You're going there for a reason. You have something specific that you want to accomplish. And I could also see the librarians, like, yeah, wandering around and checking in on people if they look like they're drifting off. Like, do you need anything? Do you need help looking up a book, etc.?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I'm also imagining them be so I know that last time Daniel established that only the janitor knew about this grand conspiracy, but how would you feel, Daniel, if we brought in your librarians into that fold as well? Like people who are like part of the faculty, but still like distant or like arm's reach away from the very pretentious art aspect of it? Or do you want to still keep those very separate? What do you think?
I think that the librarians might have a sense that there are things going wrong for the students, and maybe they can serve as a way to help students work through it. But I don't think that they're aware of the big magical stuff that's going on necessarily. I could see, though, through the course of the adventure, a librarian getting involved, like getting pulled into
Mm.
it, and then
Mhm.
coming to realize there is something magical afoot. But I think the special status of the janitor and his little Scooby Doo crew, I think the janitor knew for a long time and has been biding his time, whereas librarians, they serve a purpose in the school, and so they're not like actively doing anything about the grand conspiracy, or are they? I don't think they're aware of any really.
Mhm.
So they're more like stewards for the students, right? They're more like we need like our purpose, our job is to make sure that the students get through it okay, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what they're kind of like. I guess that's what they've their real job is obviously to be a librarian, but they've in functionally in the narrative, like they've come to shepherd the students in that way. Yeah.
Right. Can I make a request, Daniel?
Yes.
For the librarians, I don't know why, but because that they're, like we've now got slightly anthropomorphic animals, I just want like a little mole lady to come around with like tea and scones. I
Yeah.
want them to be like, "Dearie, you're looking very tired. You got to eat something. Here's some tea. Here's some scones." And then like, here's a blanket too. Like, I want them to be like that level of like kindly and like helpful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that. We can have all kinds of fun with animals representing librarians.
When I have it in my head, because I don't know. I just think like mole lady, she's got a like apron on, she's got like one of
Mhm.
those frilly hats and stuff like that. Like it's just like, yeah, that's matron mole is where my brain goes when I think of like adorable, cozy, like librarian.
Mhm.
All right, we've got an expanded universe with librarians. We've got cute animals, and now I'm going to make it a little bit more not sexual. That sounds a little too aggressive, but I was kind of enamored with the idea of making it more of a romantic aspect. And I mean, Courtney had brought it up last time with one of her tenants where we wanted like pairs and stuff like that in terms of romance and everything like that. I was thinking that when the Nightmare King comes for you and when you join his cult, his being not a proper pronoun, whatever, it's not important. But when you've joined into the nightmare cult, there is, like there is actual truth to the rumor that you get matched up and paired with people. It's just that's what happens. It's like, no, like I know I'm part of this cult, and yes, we'll probably grow out of it. But from that, true romance does in fact blossom and spring because it's like something happens when you're in the nightmare cult where you start to like when the id and the ego and the superego all get stripped away and you see one another for what you actually are, or maybe the Nightmare King has a little bit more say in it. You see each other like, oh, that is someone who I want to be with. And so I wanted to reify the idea that, yeah, no, like the rumors are true. You do find your soulmate. It just so happens that you kind of have to join the nightmare cult to be part of it, because I also think that that'd be kind of a fun way to, get recruitment numbers up as well. It's like, hey, like, okay, we get it. You don't want to be part of the nightmare cult, but are you feeling lonely? Do you want to meet your soulmate? Guess what? I can find your twin flame. You've just got to join my nightmare cult. No big deal. I've got you.
Speaking of twin, did you see the documentary about twin flames? As you were saying that, it
No.
made me think of
That's
cults.
why I brought it up.
You
Yes.
just saw it? Seriously? Well, I mean, okay. To honestly respond to what you're saying though, it sounds like from Courtney's tenant, like that to start, like Courtney's tenant was that when you that the destiny there's a destiny in terms of romantic relationships, right? When they're daydreaming, that gets
Yeah, it's
generated,
like
right?
students that have romantic dreams about each
Mhm.
other are
Become
rumored to be
real.
destined to be together, yeah.
And it sounds like, Rob, you're saying that, in which makes sense, that in the daydreaming space, there's a danger of this dream monster, right? Because he's trying to come into existence. And so it seems that if you daydream more, you get closer to having your desires realized, right? But that means aligning yourself with the dream monster, or at least the cult that worships him, or the getting dipping your toes into that pool, basically. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I,
Okay.
I think that something happens when you join the dream cult where you really like, like you were talking last episode about this idea that people are trying to find their identity, right? And I think that what happens in the dream cult, and to a certain extent, is that you actually do find your identity, but only because you're stripped of so much of the edifice or so much of the artifice that you create in this kind of artistic persona, right? And so people actually see you as you actually are. It's kind of like if people started making real art that actually represented themselves. And that's what they, oh, actually, I'm taking that back. I just realized as I'm talking about this that I think that that's way more interesting to me. That when you join the cult, you're making you're being creative in service to the Nightmare King. And I think what happens is because you're expressing yourself in this way, people start to you start to actually genuinely express yourself through the art, and it's a more real reflection of who you are than the kind of persona and whatnot that you create in art school. And so people start to see each other in each other's art. And maybe that's what it is that people start to fall in love with the art that you make while you're part of this cult rather than like each other. I don't know. This is like a brand new thought, and I'm curious to see how y'all feel about it.
Are you saying then that like the Dark Lord is good in terms of like encouraging the students to be more themselves?
I think that what's happening is that in the service to the Dark Lord, they are more genuine. But the problem is that they're subverting, or the Nightmare King is subverting that creativity towards a poor end, which is the subjugation of those people towards the Nightmare King, right? So it's not that he's good; it's he's creating good and and like absorbing it to himself, right? Does that make sense?
I'm trying to just work through this in my head. So if we think about the function, the way that that daydreaming works, right? We were saying that um, these students, if they daydream, so they're not fixed on a task, right? So what does daydreaming mean? It means to imagine what you could be, or to imagine an ideal that you're not currently, right? So it's to imagine something that you desire. It's to daydream, and you're doing this idly. So then perhaps when you, and I think I'm getting where you're going. So perhaps when you daydream, let's say I'm daydreaming and I'm like, oh, I wish I had a new car, and I was driving on the beach and it wasn't 99 degrees in Boston, blah, 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 right? I'm imagining this ideal life, and that if I were to realize that life would be better for me. And so if the Dark Lord interacting with him, daydreaming in this way, helps create that for you, or makes that real for you in some way, then in a sense, I guess you're becoming more genuine to what you desire. I guess the distinction that I would make is that what you desire may not actually be a reflection of yourself. It just may be a reflection of it's just a reflection of what you want. So maybe these cult members, like, they may desire the cheerleader, or the male gymnast, just to give us some equal opportunity there. But it may not be what they need, and it may not be genuine to who they are. I think that's probably the danger with the Dark Lord. You can get what you want out of him, but it may not be what you need. It may not be true to your identity. That way we can still make him dangerous.
Right. It's all about unconscious desires, right? And the Nightmare King is more than welcome to just like let you feed into that all like entirely. But what happens then is you're feeding into something that might not be real. But what I'm suggesting is that there's an opportunity there where those unconscious desires like connect you with someone else in a way that is real, and it offers a way for you to like get out of that nightmare cult
Oh,
as well.
because since you daydream, if you daydream about someone that you like, right? They might be daydreaming about you or whatever, and your desires are alike, but you may not be similar people, but that's what makes you guys end up being together.
Right, or like you recognize like, oh, I have this unconscious desire to feel safe or to feel loved or to be courageous, and then you find someone with a complementary unconscious desire as well, and then you start to look at each other like, oh, I can see how your unconscious desire can potentially feed into mine. And it's like it's a meet cute in a cult, and it just so happens that that is the way out of the cult as well.
Got it.
Does that make sense? I spiraled away from where I was going because I'm like, wait a minute, I think I like this idea more. But that's where I got. That's where I'm at right now.
Okay. I had also had this thought after our last recording, because we had talked about like the cult polycule and all of that stuff. And I was thinking like, oh, what if the student cult leader makes their fellow polycule members dream about them, like basically making the other students think that they're destined to be with this person as a way to accrue
Oh.
followers. So I don't know if that could tie in some way.
Sure, it's like
Oh.
a false infatuation or
Mhm.
like an ability to create a false infatuation. I think that's very powerful, yeah.
Mhm.
So they're manipulating. If the power of daydreams here, the Dark Lord's power is to make these daydreams real. The cult that worships him, the polycule, they are able to manipulate people's daydreams. Is what we're saying.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Or at least like the leader, maybe the Dark
The
Lord
leader.
has like imbued that person with particular powers in
Mhm.
in exchange for their service or what have you.
Because the more they work this out, the more likely it is he'll be able to cross the threshold into the real world.
Right, yeah.
Okay, this sounds good. I like where we're at right now. So I feel like we're at a good place where we can start pivoting into where normally we'd be diving right into factions. But last episode, Daniel talked about the very clicky nature of school in general, really. And so I was like, that's a perfect idea. Instead of coming up with factions, I would much rather come up with a clique. So Daniel, you're the one who kind of inspired this whole idea. So what is your clique? Explain it. What do you got for us?
So, as you know, I hate contemporary art, and I think it is a joke. So, I thought perhaps there is a clique. So, this group either they are students who have come to the realization that they hate what they're doing, or they genuinely do believe in contemporary art, but they're trying to take it to a next level. Basically, they're going to be young Dadaists. They're for in terms of for those of you who don't know what Dada is, it's kind of like an evolution of surrealism where we're kind of pointing our finger at the absurd and calling it out for what it is essentially. And so these artists are destructive with contemporary art, and they really are putting a middle finger to the whole system. So some of them actually believe in art, and some of them are just being jerks. But I think that this clique, they're like that annoying kid that they're never serious or everything they say is sarcastic.
Mhm.
Like they might actually have talents, but they don't want to use it because they just think they're beyond that. That's the kind of clique we're dealing with, and I don't know whether they're aligned at all with. They don't think they're aligned with the shadow creature, but they're also not trying to help the situation either. So that's my group there.
They're sort of like agents of chaos in their own way.
Yes, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, they can be helpful because
Yeah.
they probably daydream, but their daydreams don't make any sense, but at the same time, they are kind of jerks. So,
Yeah. It's like they think they know a ton about art to the
mhm.
point where they can like push back against it, but they actually don't know what they're doing. So
Yes,
it's all just a bunch of bullshit
yes.
in
They're
every
like living
direction.
non sequiturs.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're absurdists to the extreme, right?
Mhm.
That I understand. Yeah, like that is Dadaism is well, everything honestly, Dadaists are also like kind of in response to like nihilism, I think, because it's like they're like artists who truly don't believe that anything matters, and they're like kind of rebelling against the idea that everything has intrinsic and deep meaning within art. But I don't know if you want to go that far. We can go with like anarcho Dadaists, which I think is totally fine. But
God.
I mean,
yeah,
I think they would be truer to Dadaists, the kind that are reacting to like the World War, because like I don't necessarily think that the Dadaists think that nothing has meaning, um, because they're reacting to what they see as the horrors, at least in our real ones, the horror of war and what it caused. And so, like they're pointing out that a lot of the foundations that we thought were safe are not. But
mm,
these are kids
Mhm.
though, so
Yeah.
they're not that smart. So they probably
Yeah.
are the kind who would define, not having meaning as a terrible thing, right? So they don't really
Mhm.
get it fully. Maybe there's a few in there that actually do get it, but for the most part, I think yeah, they're your typical like not skater punk. What's the word for it? Like what kind of clique is it in the school where they're just like fucking around?
See, I would say that there's a bunch of names for that. Like there's burnouts,
Yeah.
that's part of it, you know?
Yeah, like maybe it's a mix of all the kind of like fringe cliques, like the potheads and the
Mhm.
burnouts that are constant, or the ones that are constantly getting arrested, and the drugger ones. Like they're a mix of those.
Yeah. And like kind of using their stance on art as a reason to like do all these dumb things and
Yeah.
not do work. Like I could totally see some of these students like coming into class with like without the assignment or with some like really
Mhm.
poorly done thing, and their explanation is like, well, it doesn't actually matter, or like I'm expressing myself, so
Yeah.
deal with it kind of.
Actually, this is part of my assignment. You know,
Yes,
like
yeah.
that big energy. Yeah, for sure.
And
Oh,
They're like,
actually
oh, I hate it.
deconstructing the assignment down to its barest form, which is meaningless. So therefore, I've come with nothing.
they're like they've lampooned themselves, and that's the
Mm,
problem. What their intent was to mock something. They're making a mockery of themselves.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like I'm imagining that like instead of turning in an essay, they turn in like wood pulp and like ink in its rawest form, being like,
Yeah.
"There's my
Mhm.
essay. It's your job to put it together." You know, like
Yep.
that kind of thing.
Yep.
God, and
Yeah,
sometimes they get an A on it. Like,
Mhm.
yeah. There's always that one teacher who's like, "I like your anarcho spirit. That's good. Yeah, fuck you, man." You know, like
yeah.
I too hate the faculty here. You know, like yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
But yeah, I could see this clique having like forms as a reasonable thing. Like they were critiquing the staff, they were critiquing the structure of the school and how like restrictive or how whatever it was. But then over time, it just became like the place where all the shitty burnouts and people who
Mhm.
don't want to do anything ended up spending their time because they realized they could get away with not doing anything.
Exactly.
It
And I think
it is
there's probably like one or two students who are legit, but they're all,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. It's almost like they're being pushed out of their own group.
group.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, yeah. It to me, it's like the click of wasted potential as well because they've like bought so deeply
Yeah.
into their bullshit. Yeah. Okay, that's good. I like where that's going for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I have like what is close to the antithesis. Well, actually, no, that's not true at all. You know what? Let's go with Courtney. Courtney, why don't you
Mhm.
tell us what your click looks like? What's their deal? Tell us all about it.
All right. I went in a very different direction from Danielle. Mine is effectively the anime club. They
Oh
are
dear God, yes.
they're not very popular students. They spend a lot of time consuming media from foreign lands and end up making a lot of artwork that's derivative of that style. So they basically don't have a style of their own. It's all based on copying what they think looks cool, and so much of their free time and their hobbies are spent around this foreign media. And yeah, I don't know where they would fall in terms of the Dark Lord cult. I imagine that they're probably not involved in that cult. Um, though at the same time, I could see like potentially some of them being a target for the cult leaders' polycool dreams if they get like particularly desperate. Like these people probably don't have partners maybe, and are sort of psychologically an easy target for that sort of daydreaming.
Mm, yeah. So is this the kind of like click that would have a lot of OCs in their art coming up? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Oh yeah, no, that's an excellent point. They definitely have
God.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
They're like, and when you think of the Dante's Inferno of nerd groups, they're pretty far. I once rendered a drawing of that. They're pretty far down. I mean, what's worse than that? Like Magic players. I can't think of like Yu-Gi-Oh players, like World of Warcraft players.
Yeah.
Honestly, you know, when I started when in my 20s, I was in a bunch of meetup groups when I came to the city, and I tried briefly to go into like an anime slash
Mm.
um, random hobbies group, and it was truly the lowest of the low, guys.
I
Daniel, what?
can
You don't even
imagine
like
that.
anime. Like, yeah, like I
Mhm.
can't imagine that either.
I just thought like, well, this is something that's familiar to me, even though I hate it. So let me just
Yeah.
see if maybe I'll find a friend there, and then we can do something else. Nope.
Right, it's
Nope.
like nerd adjacent kind of stuff. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe they'll have something in common with these people. Then I'm picturing you entering it like that scene from Community where he walks in with the pizza boxes and like everything's on
It's so fun.
fire and
Yes. Yeah, that was it. I'm like, nope, nope, I can't do this anymore.
yeah.
Oh dear
Yeah.
God. Yeah. By the way, I wanna push back. Regular people play WoW and Magic the Gathering. Like regular socially well-adjusted people do those things. I'm like when I think of anime club, by the way, I'm
I
including
mean,
myself in all of these
regular
groups that you're
well-adjusted
talking
people
about.
do heroin too.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah,
True.
I don't know about that.
Mhm.
But rock stars do heroin, like I
That's
wouldn't
true.
necessarily call them well adjusted. But
Yeah.
anyway, my point being, right, is
But those
that
are
like
casuals. They don't count.
so
Yeah, I
okay,
think he's talking
remember
about like the hardcore, like
Yeah, the
people.
gross ones.
no, I'm with
Yeah.
you. I was actually going to say we're taking the knob and we're cranking it to
Yeah.
absurdity, right?
Mhm.
Like right with the anime club, for
Uh-huh.
example, right? We got to
Although
turn
every
that up
anime
to
club is
11.
disgusting and you're all the lowest of the low. Just to be clear, just so you understand my position.
That is coming from a place of Daniel's hatred of anime really coming through.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, I can understand what we're going for here. Again, I feel like the flavor of this world is also like somewhat, I think that part of the fun comes with like kind of playing with these stereotypes a little bit, right? And like seeing how they're reflected within pretentious art school.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like these ones would be outcast because their art is so derivative and focused on this one style, and like I could see professors getting annoyed with them in class if it's like, oh, draw this still life, and they come out with like random anime figures in the background, or they just completely ignore the assignment in favor of this, in their mind, more fun, exciting style.
All right, I need you guys to the assignment is we're drawing some still life, okay? So we're looking for photorealistic. And then the anime club rep president is like, I drew the still life being cut up by my OC, Angel Killer Bane Goth or whatever his name
Being
is, right?
goth.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, like I can see that where it's just like that wasn't the assignment. And like maybe like the still life is actually really good. It's just marred by the presence of Angel Slayer Bane Goth, like whatever it is.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Where again, because I'm looking for some light and some hope within these groups, within these cliques, where some of them are talented, right? Like some people were insufferable anime club people. I know some, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but some people come out the other side of it being pretty okay and pretty cool.
Anime is all corrupting and you should never watch it. Just so
I know. I found some good ones. You know.
Speaking of caricatures, we like to mess around.
I was gonna say wash your whore mouth. But I couldn't do it.
Daniel,
I couldn't do it.
you literally brought up anime on your own
I
multiple
know.
times. There's
It's my
proof.
fault.
There's audio proof of you bringing up anime on your own. I
I
don't want to
can
hear
bring
Yeah.
it.
myself to say it.
You have talked
Yeah.
about liking Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, it is good. It's quite good.
Really?
And not
There you
just
go.
Ghost in the Shell. There's like at least 4 different series that Daniel's talked about.
Don't you
Mm.
malign me? How dare you?
You malign yourself, sir. You malign yourself. Okay, so I was kind of considering the antithesis of Daniel's club. Now I'm really going to be the antithesis of Courtney's because look, I wanted there to be some representation of jockdom here, right? But what do pretentious art school jocks look like? And I was like, man, like they're not going to be like football players. Like that's not what's going on here. So I'm like, okay, they've got to be interpretive dancers. They've got to be like people who are like stomping their feet and having it so like, oh, I'm representing what the breath of the world looks like. And it's like a whole body movement and stuff like that. Right. And then I was like, what else is interpretive dance? What else is really physical? Professional wrestling. So if you want to tell a story through interpretive dance, through violence, through physicality, I'm just saying that there's a canvas here, and the canvas is the body, and that's what I've got. I've got an entire group of interpretive dancers, some of whom are professional wrestling their way to, and mind you, because it's pretentious art, it can't just be like, hey, these are mythological figures of good and evil fighting it out. It's like, no, these characters have to represent esoteric ideas of like, this wrestling match is about fighting ennui and boredom, and that's what I, but again, they're physical. That's what I want. I want jock interpretive artists. That's where I've got my stuff going.
I'm like too much of a Philistine to understand interpretive dance. I look at it and I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? Why? I don't like this. And then I turn it off. So I think your click will fit in perfectly.
I've seen some interpretive dance where I'm like, okay, I get it. It's not for me though. Right. Like that is definitely what I found, where it's like, although I think the idea of like using the body as a tool and as like as a means and method to produce art is cool in concept. I just don't think I've seen very much interpretive dance that has really wowed me or moved me to be like, man, I got to look more of that type of stuff up. You know what I mean?
I liked, like the Suspiria style dancing. I don't know if
Yes.
that's interpretive or
you
just
do.
more modern dancing. But
You know
I like
what? That is a great way that we can kind of see interpretive dancing in a more modern, although still kind of pretentious art school way, is the Suspiria remakes version of interpretive dance for sure.
Mhm.
But you, Courtney, you like it because it breaks bones.
Well, no, I like the general look of it.
The movement. Yeah.
Mine, even without the,
Even without the
torture.
Wow.
And stuff. Yeah. No, it's like very like visceral and like it doesn't try to be pretty.
It's scary.
It's like kind of scary and uncomfortable, but also very powerful.
Mm.
And there's a lot of menses blood, sure. Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one, Courtney. That's actually a banger of an example of something that could be, like interpretive dance related or adjacent. And again, I'm just thinking that these are by far the best, like these are the art students who are in the best shape. I'm not saying that they're bullies, but maybe they're bully adjacent, and maybe
there's also fighting involved, you said. Like
professional wrestling. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Where
can you square that for me?
Yeah, I'm trying to make that make sense.
Well, no, they wrestle each other. They don't like professional wrestle the other people, because the other people don't know how to actually respond and make that art meaningful. Like if they go and give them like an Irish whip or like a clothesline, they just fall down and get hurt. It's like, oh, well, that's not exciting. That's not expressive of the art that I want to represent. That's not representing capitalism in the way that I wanted to, right? Or the crushing of the bourgeoisie. No, I need a partner who is also versed in pro wrestling so they can truly enact what I need them to enact, right? So it's not like the violence is aimed at normies, or those outside of the clique. I wanted to make that clear.
So are there two groups in here? There's like dancers and there's also like people who wrestle or fight?
Daniel, pro wrestling is interpretive dance. I don't know what you're talking about. It's the same thing. The Venn diagram is a circle, my friend.
Don't know how the actual dancers feel about that.
I mean, the actual dancers are pro wrestlers, so they feel great about it.
Yeah. Maybe it makes sense in this art school where everything is bullshit.
Oh man. Okay, well, that's what I've got going on. So
like do they also do like fencing, but they don't use swords? And not sexually. Like they pretend they have swords. That's what I'm saying before you jump on that bandwagon. Like, do they do basketball, but there's no basketball or hoops?
I mean, I wasn't going to,
God.
but
I want
actually,
that
wait, no, that's amazing. Where they're like, okay, we
Now
need
it's
these
dance.
people. Yeah, we need these people to be the hoop, and we
Yeah.
need these people to be the ball.
The ball,
you know?
yes.
Yeah,
There you
exactly.
go.
Yes.
That's what I was wondering. I'm like, can we turn the sports into interpretive dance this way? Like, there's football, but they're not allowed to touch each other. And it's not about whoever gets to the other side the fastest. It's whoever doesn't get to the other side the slowest. Stuff like that, like stupid shit.
I think that like the idea of interpretive dance in sports is phenomenal. And I love the idea of like, there's no like actual competition. It's like, no, the whole point is to create a beautiful story and a beautiful representative like act of physicality. And it's like, yeah, someone's going to be the ball and there's going to be a back and forth, but like scores don't matter because the score isn't the point of the game, man. Like that's what I'm going for.
I could see some overlap between Daniel's Dadaist anarchists and this group because, I mean, Dadaism is like based on what you were saying, Rob, about like the message of anti-capitalism and anti-bourgeoisie, and like that's kind of what Dadaism is, at least in part, in response to. It's like I could see some overlap there, some crossover where you have somebody who's like in the lazy Dadaist group and they get attracted to this new form of art, or alternatively somebody in the dance group who really likes the message of these Dadaists and decides to like partially join them too.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that we've got like there's always going to be cross-pollination between the arts here, right? Like I think that's kind of important to see, but I can definitely see someone being attracted in both directions, you know.
Or somebody from the Dada side who's just like, man, all these dancers are hot, so I'm gonna join. join that. Yeah. Yeah.
Or and Courtney, if we want to bring in the anime club, a lot of modern day like pro wrestlers are huge anime fans because they've figured out that pro wrestling is just anime. So I could see some of your anime club people being like, I want to get in good shape like my version of Goku. So maybe like dancing is the way to do that because they see like the incredibly fit, lithe dancers of the interpretive dance troupe, and they're like, maybe that's what we got to do to get there. Maybe if I want to be the best cosplayer possible, I've got to get into shape. And then so they start to see those wheels start to spin, and they still don't take showers, but you know, like they start to get into this idea of like maybe being in physical shape is a good place to be.
Yeah, I was more picturing them less involved or like maybe trying to mimic the dance group, but in terms of like, you know, waving around a katana or a pair of nunchucks, but having absolutely no idea what the fuck they're doing.
Oh, yeah, that sounds fun to me. I can definitely see that too. Yeah. Just Naruto running all over the place.
Oh God. Yeah, they definitely do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like because now we're like starting to launch ideas or lob ideas back and forth, which I'm a big fan of. I feel like now is a good place for us to sit and situate ourselves within a main storyline quest. So open to ideas and interpretations about what kind of storyline quest we're going to see here. What are we thinking?
The movie Legion or the TV show Legion. Done. We did it.
TV show Legion.
Done.
Could you elaborate?
Don't you dare,
What?
Daniel. Don't you dare.
Elaborate. Watch the TV show Legion.
Yes. Yes.
Basically. No, that was a joke. But no, I don't have an idea. I was just being jerk.
But no, I guess that does work given, you know, the Shadow King and everything. I think like the obvious one would be rooting out the Dark Lord's plot and, you know, saving the school or whatever.
I guess like what does he want that we don't know?
Yeah.
Like, he wants to be realized, but what happens if he is? Like What's wrong
Mhm.
with that?
Maybe we find out at the big winter show.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like the emergence. Maybe it's all been leading up to the big winter show where they, the Nightmare Lord kind of emerges from the daydream cocoon, or like it kind of comes. Oh, actually, wait, this is kind of perfect, because what you can do, it seems like the kind of cliques that we've created are all kind of like outsiders, or like outside of the norm of the kind of pretentious art school wave. So what you can do is like, okay, we need these three groups. We need people from these three groups to come together and basically sabotage the coming out part of the debutante ball version of the Nightmare King emerging from the big cocoon, right? Because all of the dream, all of the creative material has been coalesced, and now it's their time to come out, and something apocalyptic happens if that happens, and so it's the click's job to stop that from happening.
But what is wrong with the villain coming into existence?
Does it mean the end of creativity?
Like that's what I mean. Like, what's the consequence?
Well, so far, I mean, the cult leader, as we kind of discussed, has this power of infatuation. And so I could imagine that, let's put it into Angel and Buffy terms. So do you
Huh.
remember when like the I think it's Jasmine is its name, where it like kind of comes out and world
Oh, the
peace
god
happens.
lady.
Yeah,
Or
exactly. Yeah, like world peace
people
happens,
god.
but only because everyone worships Jasmine. And it's like no free will exists because everyone is so like enamored with this godlike being. I imagine that could be like the end of art, is because this thing emerges and there's only this thing in the art world from now on.
So we're suggesting this this Dark Lord is some kind of concept, and if you make a concept a reified thing, it ends up ruling all other concepts in the world. So if, for example, its effect is destroying creativity, then by making the Dark Lord real, since he represents daydreaming and illusion and various things, you turn the world into that. Is what we're saying, something like that.
Everything becomes derivative of the Dark Lord. Yes.
What if the Dark Lord is essentially like AI image creation?
Yes.
Ooh.
He comes
Oh,
from the latent space
Yeah. Yeah.
and
of your
and
dreams.
and it's like literally stealing creativity from other artists.
Yes.
No, that's
Yeah.
perfect, Courtney. We make AI generated art the fucking villain. Yes, I'm 100% down with
It
that.
also
For
allows you
sure.
to cast this as a sci-fi if you wanted to. Like,
Mhm.
but if you remove the animal stuff and then you put it in like a more modern techie setting, you could have it be like this nightmare from the latent space that, if emerging, will end up doing one of those paperclip apocalypses, which would make sense.
Mhm. I mean, you can even keep it within a fantasy realm and have it just be this kind of alien intelligence. Instead of AI being artificial, it's AI being alien, right? Like you could have it be a cosmic horror that is doing all of those same things, just that we can't understand what it's doing, right?
Or if you're using Courtney's setting, like you make it represent industrialism versus their natural environment or something.
Mm. And it could be alpaca intelligence. So, like it's keeping it within the animal realm as well. Or maybe it's albatross intelligence. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
It could be like the school was even built on like a magical or fey ley line or something. Like the founder of it was drawn to this place because of all the magical energy that it had in it, and didn't quite realize that this would be the potential outcome.
Like a hellmouth?
Like a hellmouth, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
I just thought of two more: aardvark, anteater. Oh, three more, or an axolotl intelligence. I'm just going with the alliterative stuff here, but yeah, no, hellmouth. I like that. I like leyline hellmouth here for sure.
I do want to say though that the Dark Lord should ideally be voiced by Tilda Swinton. Just
Oh,
wanna
Oh,
put
yeah,
that out
yep. Playing a 90-year-old German man as well.
there.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh man, I love telling people that Tilda Swinton was I don't even remember the character's name, but the old man in Suspiria remake, because people are like, wait, what? And
Yeah,
it like shocks so many people. I love it so much.
yeah. It's definitely an interesting casting choice.
And yet she nails it all the same. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, so our main storyline quest is we've got the Dadaists, the anime club, and the interpretive dancers. They have to stop the emergence of AI art from hitting the winter solstice pageant. Right? That's the storyline.
I think so, and, like, I don't know, I feel like it could be a bit more complicated than just, like, good versus evil, like, even with the AI argument, there is an argument to be had of, like, giving quote unquote art skill to the people broadly as
yeah.
opposed to having it, you know, kept by these pretentious artists in the school. So I could see like arguments on both sides. Like maybe the Dark Lord isn't so bad, you know?
I like that.
Yeah, and I think that we can also further complicate things by adding in emotions and romantic feelings and like all of the stuff that we were talking about in the previous episode, where it's like, yeah, no, there's romance and there's legitimate things that are happening within the nightmare cult, and that's all kind of swirling together in this giant pot. And then also we want to throw in some hijinks, right? Like part of the fun of this type of setting is not just open combat and open, critiques and stuff like that. It is also like, hey, let's go do some funny nonsense, or like, oh, also I'm going to fall in love somewhere in between here too.
Yeah, I think that's important to make sure that it ends up whatever story you're going to run here. Um, the meat of this is the interpersonal relationships among the students, and then going back to Courtney's Tenet, I think also the romance component, right? So you can't lose sight of it for the larger world
Mhm.
consequences. I mean, you could even make this more narrow. Instead of it being the fate of the whole world and this creature emerging and all that nonsense, it could be this winter ball hinges on like one relationship, and the Dark Lord is just tangential to it or causes problems throughout it. And that way it's not about like the changing the world. It's more about changing one person's
Yes.
experience in college. You
Mhm.
could run it that way too and have it be very local. You probably want to use a system, if it was an RPG, you probably want to use a system that's like, PBTA adjacent, like maybe Monster, what's it called? Monster
Monster
of the
Hearts.
Week, or Monster of the Week, or Monster Hearts, or, like something that's slice of life esque, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was thinking too. I love the idea of the characters and the interpersonal stories really coming up or like being front and center. And like I think part of the reason that we have to go for the kind of generic here is because we're not creating individualized characters, but those individual personal relationships are what should be front and center here. And yeah, by the way, the Dark Lord is rising, whatever. That's not the emotional core of the story. It just so happens that that's happening in the background. And yes, we're involved, but I'm way more uh I'm way more engaged in and invested in the love story that's happening with this particular couple, or the friendship that these two unlikely people are kind of gaining or like developing throughout the story. But again, we can't really do that unless we actually sit down and hashed out writers room style. But I agree with you entirely, Daniel, that those interpersonal relationships are what come front and center here with this particular type of storyline. All right. I feel like we're at a pretty good stopping point at this point in the show. How do y'all feel? Do we have any lingering threads that we haven't pulled on yet? What are we thinking? Are we good to wrap up?
Yeah, I don't think there's any missing. The elements are there to build, whether it's a game or a story. Get at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
people could take it in a lot of different directions depending on what they want to do with it. If they want to keep it as this cute woodland creature thing, or if they want to go full sci-fi or whatever.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's part of the beautiful parts of this podcast is you take the parts that intrigue you, right? Like that's the whole purpose of this is we're here to inspire you to do more with your world building and kind of explore different arenas and areas and steal what you need to steal and move on with what you need to move on with, right? And with that being said, now is a great time to wrap it up and end this episode. So, a huge thank you to our longtime patron, one Mr. Gluax. Thank you so much for this prompt. We had a lot of fun with it. It went in some weird directions, but I hope you enjoyed it. Remember that if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can click the link, follow some instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we can be building your world. If you want to follow us on social media, we're over on YouTube and Twitter. So go give us a follow, or you might even be listening to this on YouTube right now. Who knows? Now, if you want to come talk to us more directly, you can go do that through our Discord with a link for that in the description. And you can come chat with us. Let us know what kind of cute furry animal you would be, or maybe you'd be scaly. Who knows? I'm not here to judge you. Courtney, Daniel, that's what they're here for. Now, if you're yes.
Yep.
Now, if you're feeling particularly generous, you can always go to our Patreon and donate money to us there as a thank you. Or maybe you want some sweet, sweet patron-only goodies like 2 episodes for your prompts instead of 1. Well, you get that by going to our Patreon and supporting us there. That's going to do it for this episode of World Build with Us. Remember that we love you very much, and we're going to get through this together. Until next week.